Hello again, welcome back to another episode of your Copy Chats with me, Wei Lin. How are all of you doing? I hope you all had a wonderful start to the year of the tiger, or failing that, a good break thanks to the holidays, wherever you may be. I'm finally back, and today I feel like I got a good set of material to share with everyone. Really top quality. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So I saw this commentary on my one of my favorite news sources. I read a few. This is one of them, Channel News Asia. Published a commentary by a gentleman named Marco Springman, who's an Oxford researcher. Very vague, but turns out that Mr. Springman is he was a physicist and then later on went to be an economist studying sustainability. Right. So he makes a few very important claims in this article, and I think everybody by now has heard about the claim that we should eat more plants. Meat and dairy farming is evil because it pollutes the environment. Cows fart so much that it actually changes the climate, is what we're told. So let's dive into it. There are a couple of things I would like to talk about. See here, global food system is in disarray. Really, it seems to make a lot of money. I don't know why you would say it's in disarray. Animal agriculture is a major driver of global heating. And to this is linked the article that I will now show you very quickly, also on Channel News Asia. Can we eat meat and still tame global warming? So this is a pretty sneaky trick. You link to a different article on the same news site, and then with the text, you highlight it as saying it's a major driver of global heating. Now, how major is major? Let's see. So this article highlights information from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a special report. Now, what does it say? Let's see. The global food system, from farm to food court, accounts for at least a quarter of global greenhouse gas emissions. Wow, that sounds huge, right? Because we all know how important greenhouse gas emissions are. So the global food system, that must be a lot of cow farts. Look at that. More than a quarter of today's food-related emissions come from cattle and sheep. So does this tally? The global food system accounts for a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions, and a quarter of today's food-related emissions come from cattle and sheep. So which one is it? Pick one. Because the global food system seems to include vegetables, plants, whereas this sentence here says that food-related emissions come from cattle and sheep. Now, note that neither of these are in quotation marks, whereas elsewhere, oh yes, you may see here, sorry, the quotation marks is for a quote direct from an individual. So which one is it, right? It replaces CO2 absorbing forests with land for grazing and soy crops for cattle feed. Beef requires 20 times more land and emits 20 times more greenhouse gases per unit of what is this? Edible protein than basic plant proteins. Where does this information come from? Does a cow require 20 times more land than, I don't know, soybeans? I suppose that could be true because soybeans just stay still. So that would be obviously true. However, here's something very important, which is totally missing. And I'd like to refer you to this really famous documentary called Cowspiracy. Now, in Cowspiracy, we are told that the meat industry is really, a huge driver of greenhouse gases, exactly as claimed in this article. And within this article, you can see here that there are numerous references to these pollutants, right? The reference here replaces green forests. Reference here saying that the global food system accounts for a quarter of the greenhouse gas emissions in the world. And then reference here, more than a quarter of today's food-related emissions come from cattle and sheep. So numerous such references. And Cowspiracy is the famous documentary that talks about that. Now here I found the website of a member of faculty, a researcher at the University of California, Davis. You can see in the URL up here. And they have he has something to say. It's a Professor Mitch. Damn it, what was his name? Let's see. Mitch Mittlehner. Mitch Mittlehner. So what does Professor Mittlehner have to say? He says, and I quote, "Something remarkable happened recently. The producers of the movie Cowspiracy, a documentary produced by Leonardo DiCaprio, which makes wildly inaccurate claims about the role of animal agriculture in climate change, publicly backed away from the main tenet of the movie and what may well be the biggest gee whiz stat in the 2014 documentary. In an effort to present animal agriculture as the most fearful threat to our environment, the World Watch Institute and producers Kip Anderson and Keegan Kuhn cherry-picked an inflated number from a single flawed source. Armed with the faulty data, they made the claim that animal agriculture is responsible for a staggering 51% of greenhouse gas emissions. Not even United Nations would go that far. More than any other source, including transportation." Here, the screenshot being shown, though, actually states 18%. So I don't know what happened. I haven't seen Cowspiracy myself, truth be told. Now, what is the counter? Okay, Professor Mittlehner says, as a professor and air quality specialist at UC Davis and former chairman of LEAP, a global UN Food and Agriculture Organization partnership project. So Professor Mittlehner has had dealings with the United Nations. So at least, I hope you see that, I'm trying to find a credible source, with credentials that are, meet some threshold to say, okay, this person has credibility. So here we go. So what does Professor Mittlehner say? He says, "I was dismayed by Cowspiracy's claim. I've been working tirelessly to set the record straight about animal agriculture in general and Cowspiracy in particular." So what does he say? These days, Anderson and Keegan, the producers of the Cowspiracy, are much closer to the truth, having tweeted and posted that 18% of greenhouse gases are from global animal agriculture on their website, cowspiracy.com. And I can read here that the tweet from the Cowspiracy account says that it is 18% of greenhouse gas emissions. Incidentally, Professor Mittlehner says the 18% figure is still not accurate, having come from the FAO study, Livestock's Long Shadow, which has since been revised by its authors to 14.5%. But at least it is far less misleading than 51%. Perhaps reluctant to dial back the statistic, they seemingly couldn't resist stating that even 18%, it is more than the combined exhaust of all transportation, using a life cycle assessment for animals and mere tailpipe emissions for transportation. This is something important that I would like to explain, and fortunately, I looked a little bit into Dr. Mittlehner's work, and he had this explanation. That is, the life cycle for animals is, everything from birth to death, to the slaughterhouse and to your plate. So every single part of the life cycle of meat leading up to your plate was factored into the calculation, right? So transport, the power used in the slaughterhouse to slaughter the animal, all of that requires power, which is generated through burning fossil fuels, which emit greenhouse gases. So you total that up together, scale it up by a factor of however many animals that we slaughter every year, and there you have a number. And then that is compared to tailpipe emissions for transportation, which means that it only applies to, we only total the emissions emitted by a car's exhaust pipe. So if there is greenhouse gases emitted in the transportation of the fuel to the gas station in your town so that you can access it, that is not factored in. If there is greenhouse gases that transport the spare parts that go into the maintenance of your vehicle, they are not factored in. If your car was originally manufactured in the factory overseas and then had to be transported to the showroom near your home where you bought it and then subsequently put it to use, those are not factored into the calculation. So that is the comparison that Dr. Midlaner feels is extremely unfair, which I would agree with. This assertion was debunked by Mottet and Steinfeld, who are they anyway? I suppose they must be the authors of the study. Even more disturbing is that the overly inflated 51% number is still being espoused, even in the infographic still on cowspiracy.com and elsewhere on the internet where people go for information. No wonder everyone is confused. One of the latest to pick up on the cringe-worthy 51% is Beyond Meat, which showed a stat on its homepage as recently as September 2018, seemingly to sway more people to purchase the company's plant-based product that mimic meat. So, oh yes, Frank Midlaner, there you go. So after hearing about Dr. Midlaner's assertions, what do we think? Well, let's take a moment just to look at the profile of Dr. Marco Springman, who wrote the original article that I'm criticizing or critiquing. Let me be honest. I'm offering a critique, but only as a layman, right? I make no claims about the accuracy of anybody's science here. So Dr. Marco Springman is interested in policy analysis and questions related to sustainability. I have read somewhere else that he originally studied physics, and now, and later on, being a smart guy, he got a subsequent degree in economics with focus on sustainability, I think from Leeds University. And on Google Scholar, it appears that Dr. Springman has over 70 papers written. You can see here, 1 to 74. He has a large body of work. And his top cited papers have thousands of citations. So he's not not a lightweight. Oh, wait, maybe I should do the same for Dr. Midlaner. Okay, wait, this is just for fun. Let me just be very clear, because this is not the way to decide on the truth of science. But it is definitely something fun to do. Oh, there you go. So Dr. Midlaner is a very, very productive researcher. He has 194 papers written. I did not know that prior to looking at this. It certainly looks like he put in a lot of work. So coming back to the Channel News Asia piece, you have this piece that claims, or presents what appear to be maybe slightly misleading facts, right? Account for at least a quarter. What does that mean? It appears that the best information that I can find claims that it is for less than 15%. And that is using a calculation that greatly favors the number for automobiles, because automobiles just tailpipe emissions, whereas for animals we calculate it from birth to slaughterhouse, from farm to plate, shall we say. And then who wrote this article? Well, it's from the AFP. It's not written by Channel News Asia itself, which gives them a little bit of distance from it. Then they got Dr. Springman to write an article, and in it he begins right away saying it's a major driver of global heating. I suppose you could still make an argument that 14% is really high, but let me continue now. It's already taken way too long to get as far as we did. He goes on, but Dr. Springman notes, unless the world can slash the amount of animal products in its food system and embrace more plant-based diets, there's little chance of avoiding dangerous levels of climate change and mounting public health problems. Now, I don't like this because I think that it is an assertion without evidence. See, this is obviously very scary. to say that we have little chance of avoiding dangerous levels of climate change that will surely impact all our lives and our children's lives forever and ever, and mounting public health problems, implying that we have substantial, large, growing public health problems as a result of climate change. Of course, we have public health problems. People eat too much sugar, too much, carbohydrates, not enough vegetables, perhaps. But is climate change to blame for any of these? I don't really understand this. He goes on, agricultural subsidies help prop up a food system that is neither healthy nor sustainable. Again, it seems like there's an assertion here without any evidence, which, if you're inclined to believe these things, it's very easy to look at it and think that, yes, it's totally true. But I might be a little different in that I want to see, links to some evidence. Give me something to chew on, to even consider, and I think that's the better way to go. He goes on, the way governments provide subsidies at the moment exacerbates the health and environmental issues of food productions. That's one of the findings of a new study published in Nature Communications by my colleague Florian Freund and me. Yes, but incidentally, you couldn't do us the courtesy of linking to it or giving us the name of the paper. That doesn't seem right, Dr. Springman. Now, what is the problem? Okay, what is the problem here? Let me see. I have found this before. Blah, 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 blah. Let me find it for you. All right. Let's start here. Dr. Springman writes, in one scenario, and because he was modeling some scenarios, we made all of subsidy payments to farms conditional on them producing healthy and sustainable foods. Now, straight away, there's something that can be discussed here, which is problematic, which is that there's an assumption here that the farms can grow anything that they want. They just choose to rear animals rather than to grow healthy and sustainable foods like vegetables, fruits, legumes, and so on. That's exactly what is stated by Dr. Springman. However, that's not really true because a land that is suitable for grazing is not suitable for farming, and vice versa. You wouldn't want to, if you have productive, fertile land, you don't want to use it exclusively for grazing. You want to plant vegetables, right? And if you have land that is not suitable for farming, right, they in fact are quite often suitable for grazing, which we have observed. Like if you picture in your mind great herds of cattle on the plains of the continental United States, they're just being herded by these cowboys. Do you notice that those fields, they don't look very rich, they look rather dry, which is in fact how it is in real life. You could not turn that land into productive farmland. I might be mistaken on this, but that's my understanding. It doesn't look anyway very fertile and productive. So I think that's what we have done traditionally as human beings. Land that we can farm, we farm it, and land that cannot be farmed, we use to feed animals. And even so, you could have both. This is the way to do it. Traditional farming, if I'm not mistaken, is that you may have three parcels of land that belong to you. On one, you grow your crop. The other is resting because it had just finished one crop cycle, one planting cycle. So it's resting. And then the third plot, you have your animals, and your animals may go and graze in the resting parcel of land as well. So then you always have one parcel of land that is being used for agriculture, while the other two are used for grazing. And so that way you cycle through different lands. You give the land time to recover, to fix nitrogen, because your plants will absorb nitrogen from the soil, and the cow poop will help to remedy that damage, right? So that's what happens. So after all this, I don't really know if this is that credible, right? you have this commentary that says, without an attempt to really be neutral, it doesn't say that we may eating more vegetables may in fact help the environment. No, it's pretty assertive to say we should eat more plants. And in Singapore, this is considered extremely assertive because most news, in fact, most of the staff writers for media in Singapore will not actually end up writing the editorials. It will only be written by members of the public, reading their letters, senior editors, and guest writers such as Dr. Marco Springman, because they have credentials. I mean, if you're such a low-level, person, why would you be writing editorials, right? You'd be like a junior writer. Nobody respects your opinion, so of course you need these credentials. And then, even so, you're as an expert, you're expected to be rather neutral and moderate in your opinion, or to be parsimonious. Just a fancy word for being cautious and stingy, with your praise and your assessments. But this is pretty, by Singapore standards, this is practically shouting from the rooftops, we should eat more plants. But the problem is that countries subsidize meat and dairy farming. So I don't really give a lot of credibility to this. But that's my opinion. If you want to, please, just remember this title, look it up, and then have a look for yourself. And that's the first topic. Second topic, on to the next one. I saw this on the South China Morning Post. So I'm cycling through a few different, what I consider to be credible news sources. Channel News Asia, very credible. I mean, a bit boring, but very credible. South China Morning Post, also very credible. And it reports that China's population crisis could give women greater reproductive rights, but hurdles remain. So what is the population crisis of China right now? Apparently, in China, there is a gender imbalance in that there are more boys than girls, more adult men than women. But also, people are not having enough children. So where a decade ago, there was the one-child policy of China, world famous one-child policy, was, I think it was right about then that it was lifted, and you're encouraged to have two. I think you could even have up to three. Whereas now you're actively encouraged to have three. Actively encouraged, as many as possible. Now, there's a great deal of difficulty. The government's facing a great deal of difficulty encouraging couples to have children. And that is the population crisis. This is a crisis that is observed all around the world. If you are from Singapore, you are well aware of this crisis. Singaporeans not having enough babies, and it is something that affects not just the entire Western world, but also Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, China now, and so on. So it says here, grappling with the population crisis and plunging birth rate, China is embracing a pro-natalist policy that could see it lift highly restrictive and controversial policies on women donating and freezing their eggs. So if you're a woman, you could now freeze your eggs in your youth so that you can pursue your career and then have children later in age. And the paper says that this gives women greater reproductive rights. Which actually, so here's my issue with this article. So far it seems so normal, except that I reckon it will go exactly the other way. Because if you as a government official want more babies, do you want to give women the option of not having babies? Because everybody wants to have sex. And more often than not, they will use contraception. They will use all kinds of birth control to enjoy sex while being able to choose the time of having children. But if you want to have as many babies as possible, would you not then stack the rules in one way so that all that sex leads to more babies? And if you were to stack the rules in that direction, would it not mean restricting women's rights? So, ta-da, there you go, everybody. I think this has it exactly the wrong way. Exactly the wrong way. It's exactly the opposite. Not you have more rights to if you want to have babies, but your rights are restricted if you want to have fewer babies or have greater say in when you have babies. All right, we can move on to the next article. Now, continuing a little bit on China, a rocket is now going to hit the moon. The moon is doomed. Goodbye, moon. Oh, not really. There's a rocket that's set to hit the moon, and I was quite entertained by this. I hope that they stream it live on YouTube. There was a rocket set to hit the moon, and it was built by China, not by SpaceX. Astronomer Bill Gray, who first identified the future impact, admitted his mistake. Very soon, though, I am sure that he will recant his false statement, his second mistake, and admit the real truth, which is that it is a rocket of unknown origin. Definitely not from China, though. I say that only for my own safety. I'm not. I'm not even. I'm only half joking. Half joking. I recommend to Mr. Bill Gray that he recants his statement for his own safety. Of course, there would never be a Chinese rocket so irresponsibly drifting through space to strike the moon. Such a thing, such irresponsible behavior would never, definitely, never come from Beijing. But I am glad of it because, yes, I consider this an exciting research opportunity. I'm going to research with my eyes the impact of this rocket on the moon surface. Furthering the furthering the news about China, it turns out that did you all know that the Olympics are still going on? Did you know? You may not have known, or maybe you knew. Hard to say because there's hardly any coverage. If you were used in the past years to seeing non-stop ads, saying blah blah blah, Samsung proud Olympic sponsor, Lenovo, official IT partner of the blah 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 Barcelona games, something like that. It's all gone. Not a single one. I think I saw one press release from Airbnb where they just avoided the question entirely about why they weren't advertising. They're saying we have a multi-year contract for many Olympics, and that's all they would say about it. So we'll just sit out this Olympics, this edition, and perhaps we'll be back for the next one. Hopefully, somewhere where we don't have to be fearful for our lives. So here we are. Look at this news from Nikkei Asia. Xi's Olympics diplomacy stumbles as leaders avoid Beijing Games. Saudi Arabia and India's delegations cancel at last minute. Man, by this point, you have to wonder who actually attended. China's foreign ministry, here it says China's foreign ministry said that the absence of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, as I understand it, he's the leader of Saudi Arabia. Crown Prince Salman cancelled due to a scheduling issue. I also have frequently cancelled dates in the past due to scheduling issues. The article goes on to note, considering Saudi Arabia as China's top source of imported oil, the Crown Prince's sudden cancellation scuttled an opportunity for Xi to strengthen ties. Definitely. I do wonder a little bit why the Saudi Crown Prince cancelled, though. India announced a diplomatic boycott on the day before the Feb 4th opening ceremony, withdrawing its top envoy. The last-minute pullout was triggered by the Olympic torch relay's inclusion of a Chinese commander involved in 2020 border clashes between the two countries. Now, if you follow the news obsessively like I do, you'll remember that Chinese and Indian troops clashed in the northern part of India, the Chinese-Indian border along the Himalayas. They fought in a place called the Galwan Valley. I saw some videos about it. No actual fighting, but it looked like a rather desolate place. Definitely very, very cold looking. Not much snow at the time, but very rocky, gray. So not a very hospitable place. But there they fought, and I think there were dozens of casualties on either side. And seems this piece of news here seems rather surprising. It seems like a bit of a miscalculation by the organizers. Of course, they would want to include a hero from that incident, who survived, helped defend their country. But I'm sure that they would have known that it would upset the Indian government. Perhaps, yeah, perhaps that was a calculation they were willing to make. Take the chance on that, but it did not pan out. Papua New Guinea Prime Minister attended, yeah, and Chairman Xi. I'm going to call him Chairman Xi because he is Chairman Xi. Met with the leaders of Russia, Central Asian nations, Eastern European countries, and Southeast Asian countries, including Singapore and Cambodia. Yes, in fact, this was reported in the media. Singapore's president, Madam Halimah Yacob, met the Chinese Prime Minister or Premier Li Keqiang at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. She also met Mr. Wang Huning, Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party Central Committee Secretariat, at Diaoyu Tai, the state guest house. Which is a little bit, I must admit, I was a little bit surprised because not 1 year ago, China did a very unfriendly thing to use a Singaporean citizen for their spying purposes. You can see here, Big Nose. I like to switch around my search engines, just to confuse Google and spread around my traffic. I think it's good practice. I recommend it. So there's Singaporean caught for spying for the on the USA for China, and Big Nose's name, Mr. Yo, and you can see his face over here. Singaporean pleads guilty to spying for China in the United States. Called Dixon Yo, pled guilty at federal court in Washington D.C. He was eventually deported to Singapore, where he was processed for about a year. Look, someone has a very funny question here. Can one fool like this get all Singaporeans suspected? One fool like this can get all Singaporeans suspected, academic and former Singaporean diplomat Bilahari Kausikan said in a Facebook post. So, Mr. Kausikan, why would you worry about being suspected? You mean it's not a one-off? Does Master Kausikan know something that the rest of us don't? Is there a reason to suspect everyone else? I hope not. But so against this backdrop, it seems rather unusual that President Halima would meet the Chinese leaders. It almost seems as if it is more important to be friendly to China than to show your disapproval of their actions. After all, it's like somebody came into your house, tricked your children to go rob a bank with you, and then came right back and said, "Hey, I got a party at my house. Do you want to come attend?" And you go because you don't want to be, you fear being left out on subsequent parties. Feels like that. It's very, 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 very strange. Nonetheless, apparently, there are too many countries did not attend. Right? Here we go. About 20 heads of states attended the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in South Korea, while around 40 attended the opening ceremony of the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi, Russia. So without naming the total, number who attended, Nikkei, the news website, vaguely hand wavy said that okay, there was Russia, there were some Central Asian nations. Let's try to name them, okay? Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. I think they'll do these three stands, Eastern European countries. Let's try. Mm, let's try. I don't know, Romania, um, Romania, Belarus, maybe. Mm, we could try Slovenia, and then Southeast Asian countries, Singapore, Cambodia. We've got 9. I've got 9. It can't be more than 20. So it seems like the attendance from leaders has just not been very satisfactory overall. And if you take that and you put it together with your understanding that Olympic advertisers had toned down their campaigns compared to previous years, then you come away with the picture that it seems like nobody wants to attend this party. In fact, here, taking it one step further, nobody even wants to watch this party. In the United States, the media network that carries coverage of the Olympics is NBC, and they report that their ratings are headed toward a historic low. Total audience is down nearly 50% from South Korea in 2018. And that's all. You don't even need to read the article. It's just outrageous. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible state of affairs for advertisers, for sponsors, and not even the leaders of many countries want to show up to show their support for the games against the so-called Olympic spirit. So there you go, people. That depending on your orientation toward the Chinese Communist Party, your mileage may vary. Now, for myself, for my own safety, personal safety, and not really joking about that, I have to say, this is terrible, and we should all watch all the Olympics that we can. Every single clip, like them on every single social network, all the time. And again, I say that for my safety, just so you know. All right, that's all the material I prepared for you today. Thank you everyone for watching, as usual. I have great time presenting all this material to you. I'll make it a point to do more material more regularly moving forward, as I think that I need to get back into the groove of things. I'll definitely try to curate more such stories and again, provide a more holistic viewpoint, not just one report. Hopefully, it offers some taste of, what different people are doing in response to things, how different, perspective on this might look. So yeah, thank you again. Smash the like button and follow. Hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I have more great material to share with you. And thank you. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.